I've always found the concept of a safe space surrounded by danger extremely fascinating. I know you know what type of feeling I'm talking about. We've all felt it when, laying in bed at night, you start to hear the sound of rain outside. You know it's cold, wet, unpleasant. You may even take a peek outside through a window to further perceive the hostile situation you're surrounded by. Yet you're laying there under the covers in your warm bed. It feels safe. It's not like you don't usually feel safe in this environment, but the knowledge of having something to feel safe from, it makes you feel even more safe. And what better example of this feeling than how it feels stranded in the middle of the Northern Sea, stuck on an oil rig, surrounded by nothing else than murderous waves, so cold they would pierce your skin like thousands of knives, and the low but never completely unlikely risk of some Lovecraftian horror lurking beneath your feet. This is honestly the reason why I decided to play Still Wakes the Deep in the first place. This, and also the fact that I found it on sale for $8. There aren't that many games out there that offer the player the possibility of having a safe space to go back to when the outside worlds get a little bit too overwhelming. But one game comes to my mind when I think about this: Minecraft. This game gave us one of the most intense gaming experiences ever. We just kind of forget about it. You know, that first night in a survival world. You spawn in the middle of nowhere, look around for a minute or two, and then you start chopping down trees, going faster and faster as the presence of the night slowly but surely starts to approach. You don't know what's gonna happen. Still, an unknown place will always look more frightening in the dark. And then you start to hear them. You don't know what they are yet, but they do not sound friendly. You're growing more desperate. Now you see them. Spiders, zombies, skeletons, all meaning you harm. You run, not really knowing where. Then an idea comes to your mind. You need a safe space. You start to realize the struggle our ancestors faced thousands of years prior. A cave. I need a cave. You search for one, maybe even start digging, but upon finally finding it, you realize that it most definitely isn't a safe place. At least not in the world of Minecraft. If by this point you're still alive, and the fear hasn't completely cut off your rational thinking, you remember that no longer than 10 minutes ago, you were chopping down trees, which you now have in your inventory in a very convenient cubic format. I can, with the utmost certainty, say that more of you than you actually want to admit know this building quite well. It's the easiest and the fastest way to build a shelter for yourself. It's not pretty, nor it's particularly practical, yet it kept you safe. You're surrounded by dozens of hostile creatures that want you dead. You hear them, roaring and grunting all around you, until you don't. Congratulations, you managed to survive your first night. Sure, many other games offer you similar possibilities, let's say Fallout 4 with the settlements, or No Man's Sky after its, 25th update. But Minecraft is kind of just the one that stuck with me more, and I feel like that's the case for a lot of people. Still Wakes the Deep, on the other hand, does something quite a bit different. It infiltrates the threat right inside your shelter. Cameron Cass McCleary flees the Scottish mainland after evading arrest for an unspecified violent crime, and finds a job on the Bayradee, an oil rig in the North Sea. His two kids are waiting for him back ashore, while his wife is absolutely furious about his situation, even going as far as threatening to leave him if he won't hand himself to the police. In this introductory part of the game, we're dealing with nothing more than a walking sim, a type of game that it's honestly quite easy to expect from a studio like the Chinese Room, because in the past they've been authors of games like Dear Esther and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which, if you haven't played them, they're great games, but they're like the definition of walking simulator. So in this first part, the game lets us familiarize with the rig and with our colleagues. And you know, for being a game that many people finish in about 3.5 to 4 hours, it does an incredible job in characterizing the cast of the game. And sure, the game is set during Christmas holidays, so the staff operating the rig is quite small. So definitely a lot easier to manage from a writing perspective. The characterization of the cast doesn't only happen through, direct interactions, but also, for example, by letting you explore their cabins, where you can take a glance at their families, interests, and also political views.
Doesn't he surprise me? Prick.
This game is actually quite political. The situation Scotland found itself in the early 70s wasn't exactly prosperous. The economy was plummeting, inflation was inflating, and unemployment was a big issue for the country. A new hope came from the discovery of oil in the North Sea, yet it wasn't that simple. You see, Scotland is not an independent country, nor is it a sovereign state. It's always been a part of the UK as a whole, and this fact stopped Scotland from claiming property of said oil. McCleary is summoned by Rannoch, the installment manager of the rig, to his office, where, after a lovely chat, well, he gets fired. About to reach the helipad to get back on the mainland, he stops because of a strong shockwave coming from under the rig. Now, I don't really think that a normal human being would be able to survive a fall like this into, extremely cold water, but, well, he does. And I would say that this is where the game actually starts. Cass quickly finds out that whatever this shite... Honestly, the Scottish dub in this game is absolute poetry, I love it. Well, the shit is, it came out during drilling, which happened despite the team's attempts to warn executives that something wasn't exactly right, but, money.
I don't care if it feels off, just fucking do it! Or I'll come down there myself!
As I said earlier, this game often gets political, but more so in a socially critical way. The Bayradi is the perfect representation of a corporation whose only goal is to maximize profits. And the being that attacks it can definitely be interpreted like, nature getting its revenge on the incessant greed of man. The structure is in complete disrepair, leaks everywhere, even in the crew's cabins, precarious state of safety equipment, incompetence and arrogance from the manager. The 1988 Piper Alpha disaster must have been at least in part taken as reference for the sighting of this game. A chain reaction that started from a gas leak that generated by failures in communication and safety procedures caused the death of 165 people and the spilling of almost 200 tons of oil in the water. Not that many people actually know about this accident, at least in newer generations, but it's considered to be one of the worst and most expensive man-made catastrophes ever. Our first main objective is gonna be that of trying to go back to the helipad, where Rannoch at first was like, yeah, no, everything's alright, it's okay, just we're gonna be back working in like 20 minutes. Is now like waiting for survivors in order to evacuate them from the rig. After that option fails extremely miserably, Kaz's goal will become that of trying to activate the safe boats, and then in the later part of the game, trying to survive until help comes. And believe me, there is quite a lot of potentially deadly menaces on the rig. First of all, the cosmic goo. This substance that breached the rig through the drill is basically the main antagonist of the game. Other than acting like an actual parasite, infiltrating the rig and continuously deforming it, leading to fires, destruction and floods, it also heavily messes with the minds of anyone who's near it. At the beginning of this video, I said that Steelwigs the Deep infiltrates the threat right inside your shelter. But the thing is that it doesn't really stop at the shelter. It finds its way inside the minds of the other inhabitants of the shelter, forming new threats that just a moment earlier were your allies. And it does so by messing with your mind through visions, memories, forcing its victims into a state of deep trance of sorts. ultimately melting their bodies and amalgamating them into its own ever-changing mess. And to be honest with you, the design of some of these messed up creations is honestly impressive. It's really cool. Like, for example, remember Rennig? Well, this is him after the transformation.
Jesus fucking Christ!
That is so fucking cool. It is a bit anticlimactic though that all of the encounters with these creatures, well, only basically require you to either throw some shit around in order to distract them and to sneak past them, or to just run for your life and hope for the best. Other than the threats represented by the newly born creatures roaming the rig itself becomes a very big opponent to Kaz's journey. As it's slowly becoming more and more messed up by the goo, its traversing also becomes increasingly more difficult. This game, especially in its later chapters, surprised me with, honestly, the most claustrophobic, intense yet coolest underwater sections I ever played. You know those pictures of submerged places that for some unknown reason feel extremely terrifying to us? Well, it's called Submechanophobia, by the way, and it's described as an irrational fear, as a phobia of submerged man-made objects. And this game has mastered it to perfection. You know, in my case, looking at pictures like this, more so than fear, kind of triggers my curiosity. I would never, don't get me wrong, I would never, not even for good money, step in that water, knowing that it's probably home to parasites that would knock me down with an upright before actually infecting me. Yet, it's kind of like, you know, looking at a burning house. You know it's dangerous, you know you shouldn't stay near it because, you know, explosions shit may like fly in your head and kill you. Yet you kinda just look at it, mesmerized, because it's not something you see every day. It's a very, you know, unique thing to look at. Don't get me wrong, I'm really not a pyromaniac. Actually, let me know down in the comments if any of you feel like this as well. The oldest and strangest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. To this day, one of my favorite games ever remains Bloodborne, and upon analyzing its lore and plot, even superficially, it's quite obviously one of, if not the best representation of Lovecraftian / cosmic horror in media in general. You know, greater beings with even greater scope, unreachable, unfathomable for mere human beings, alien in looks, occupying even more alien spaces. Recently, I also played The Sinking City, which I thoroughly enjoyed despite it being a clunky mess of a game. But Still Wakes the Deep probably takes an even simpler, methodical approach to Lovecraftian horror. In a way, its story reminded me quite a bit of John Carpenter's The Thing. And I promise you that's not only because the two main characters share a ridiculously similar name. And you know, I also heard a couple of people talking about this game on YouTube and comparing it to the Netflix production Annihilation. No. But you know, all of these similarities only happen on a very superficial level. I feel like this game's narrative finds its strongest point in the parallelism, in its way of portraying social issues through an hyperbolic cosmic horror of a scale so great it's not even comprehensible, to the point that each one who even tries to gets destroyed, both physically and mentally. I'm aware that the gameplay is probably the weakest part of this game. The continuous quick time events, the climbing, so much climbing, I felt like I was a Scottish Ezio Auditore, and the never fading feeling like you're constantly riding a roller coaster in a tunnel, with no freedom to your actions whatsoever. And I mean, it is true, but to be honest with you, I think that is kind of the price to pay for such an intense experience. Long games are great, don't get me wrong. I'm currently playing The Witcher 3. I'm at 75 and something hours in, halfway through the main story, and haven't even started the 2 DLCs, which are quite long DLCs. They're longer than the majority of single-player games that come out today. and I'm having the time of my life. Honestly, one of the greatest gaming experiences I've had in the last 16 years or so. But the thing is that The Witcher 3 needs that length. Because, with a cast of more than 500 characters, hundreds of main and secondary missions, multiple intertwining plot lines spanning 3 continents and multiple secondary locations, it has to take its time to, let you unwrap its each and every fold. Still Wakes the Deep, on the other hand, is an incredibly self-contained story with just a hint or two about the MC's background and some reference to Scottish chronicles from the time, and that's about it. Contrary to the opinion of many other people, I honestly feel like its length is actually one of this game's best aspects. It really never overstays its welcome. It's a quick, intense, and very entertaining experience, and I feel like that's how it should be. Now, I really hope that you enjoyed this video on my new channel. Why new? Well, because I also have this one where I talk about anime and manga, and also this one where I do covers of my favorite songs. Be sure to check them out, you just might enjoy them. Having said all of that, thank you very much again. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, it honestly means a lot to me. And that's about it. Thank you very much again, and have a nice day.